dog to fight a thing, my children. John Carpenter has himself quite a reputation with horror movies. But how does he fare when he puts together an anthology comic book? And like all good anthologies, we have ourselves a horror host. Can't imagine why I'm happy to see one of those, my children. In this case, it is the grounds creeper, who of course brings us, in prosy ways and less sequential arty, 6 stories of people buried beneath the graves he cares for. The first was written by John Carpenter himself, a little tale of the quantum state of dead or not dead in The Ghost Maker. Our narrator here, now in an asylum, writes out the events of Halloweenight 5 years prior. He was a scientist visiting a former friend of his for some brandy. They had fallen out due to their differences of approach, and we see one such questionable approach as our narrator drinks some drugged brandy. His friend claims that he can use universally accepted scientific principles to create a ghost. He just does not mention that our narrator will be the guinea pig, as, based on the concept of Schrodinger's cat, our narrator is put into a state of both death and life, so that he comes face to face with his own ghost. Next up is a little story of seasickness called At Sea, where a group of friends are sailing to Hawaii, but one soon falls ill. A dark shadow seems to come into the cabin at night while he's resting, and soon one of the others gets injured investigating the shadow. One by one, the group are killed, with a strange injury in the back of their heads. The lone survivor desperately tries to reach Hawaii, finally spotting it in the distance to his relief, but also to the relief of Cthulhu here, who clearly needs a rest of his own. Third up is a tale of revenge from beyond the grave, or rather, right inside of it. 2 criminals are digging up a grave on behalf of a crime boss, trying to steal a diamond ring from the body, only to discover a limo has been placed in the grave. But when they open the sunroof, something pulls one in. Telling their boss about it later, the survivor leads him and his goons to the grave to see what happened. And of course, all end up inside of it, with our survivor walking away at least with a ring of their own. Speaking of criminals, here is another story of some. A cheerful, well-read man meets with his own boss after a job. That one was more successful, with all 3 surviving, aside for a bullet in the leg at least. They had rested for the night in an odd structure, but when they decided to depart, they found that they had invaded the home of some hungry insects. Our storyteller just barely got out alive. But the funny thing about the insect's tendency to eat you alive, you can't actually feel it happening. On the subject of feeling things, this story features a man who felt he had nothing left to live for. Until he was in the act of suicide anyway. He was just able to call 911 to save himself, but it seems he now has a squatter in his own body. Yes, a demon has possessed his body during the brief time he was dead, and the two go through a battle of wits and endurance to try to take final possession of the body. Who wins out? Well, let's just say hell is nice this time of year. And finally we have a story that's not as impressive or as original as the others, but of course is still full of murder and mayhem. A poor woman spots a more luxurious woman be mugged and killed on the streets, as she screams that her attackers don't want her possessions. They're cursed! And that indeed seems to be the case, as our poor protagonist takes a ring off her body that she can feel is full of magic and power. Not realizing, of course, that where she goes with the ring, death follows. Until it results in her own, of course. John Carpenter's Tales for a Halloween Night delivers exactly what they promise. Spooky tales, either written by or recommended by someone who knows all too well how to scare you this Halloween.
It's